to support other survivors through his disclosure is truly inspiring. And it's my hope that he finds peace through this process. I know for a fact that survivors have already been positively impacted by his words last night, and I hope that he knows that too. We support Kyle here at the Army of Survivors. We believe him and stand with him. But one disturbing part about this case, as well as so many others, is that there were plenty of opportunities to stop the perpetrator and to prevent him from doing further harm, as well as prevent further harm to Kyle. And unfortunately, as we do know and you just described, this is not an isolated incident and underlies the importance of sports institutions having systems in place, safeguarding systems, for when reports are received.
And it doesn't sound like the NHL is doing anything to help the matter when you consider there's no indication that NHL has reached out to Kyle to offer further support. Once again, he says they're challenging him in court. So I'm going to get to our other guest here in just a moment. One other question for you, Julianne, and this is not to sound naive. I want to know why this continues to happen. And what I mean by that is there are protections in place. The allegations Kyle Beach are making here, this is a crime. There is a duty amongst those in a position like coaches to report. Why is this still happening?
Well, because they're not taking it seriously and they're putting things like medals, Stanley Cups, money in and ahead of athlete well-being, quite frankly. And we urge sports institutions of all kinds to take heed and come to terms with the fact that sexual assault against one of their athletes has happened, is currently happening, or very well will in the future. So they need to wake up and take responsibility for keeping the very people that they're there for, the athletes, safe. And we know perpetrators exist, and they seek institutions that do not have robust trauma-informed practices like you're talking about in place. And if they do, they're taking advantage of those organizations that put everything else but the survivor first. That's why this keeps happening, because athlete rights are not paid attention to.
That's great analysis there. Julianne, thank you. I'm going to bring in Maria Barcelos and Arthur Lockhout. I know, Julianne, you're in the U.S. Maria and Arthur are based here in Toronto at the Gatehouse, a group that has helped and continues to help thousands of childhood sexual abuse survivors. Arthur, I'm going to start with you. We know historically there is this culture that men don't come forward about this. There is embarrassment. Have you seen some progress with that in the last few years? And what does Kyle Beach coming forward do for survivors?
Well, he's one of so many voices that are out there that have to be listened to, that it is not just a male scenario about coming forward. It's about everybody coming forward. Really, the fundamental question we have to ask all of ourselves, it's not endemic only to sports organizations. This is happening in schools, churches, hospitals, family homes. The real issue here is educating children at the earliest ages in our educational systems about this whole area of abuse, sexual abuse. Kids grew up, Kyle grew up, other people I've met over the years, Sheldon, Theo from the sports world, Martin Cruz. These people, Martin Cruz died. He killed himself, or they say he committed suicide, but really it was the abuse that took his life. And he said to me one day, the only reason that anybody paid attention to him was because the abuse took place at Maple Leaf Gardens. And yet to this day, this very day, we do not have any structural educational programming in any form in our schools that really speaks to the heart of this issue. That's what we need to do.
Yeah, Arthur and Maria, to that point, and Julianne, to fill you in as well, is something that took place here in Toronto at an all-boys private school. There was an incident.
Yes.
Criminal charges were laid. There's been convictions of young boys, 9th grade. According to the conversation maybe initially was, fooling around in the locker room, but that's not what took place. It was sexual assault, gang sexual assault, players on players here making, I should say, assaulting each other.
Yes.
Do you think now, Maria, I'm going to put this question to you, that children, as Arthur said, there is not enough of a framework. Are they more aware? Because, we hear Kyle Beach come forward. We see the U.S. athletes come forward, and they wouldn't 10 years ago because there was not a system in place to support them.
That's right. And speaking of children being more aware, they have more access to, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all the social media. They're seeing this unfold live, so they are more aware, and I think they're more ready to have these kinds of conversations. To speak to Arthur's point, we were working with one of our peer facilitators, Charmaine Loverin, who has been trying for the past 7 years to implement Loverin's law. It's an abuse education and awareness prevention week in our schools in Ontario, and it's taken 7 years. It's going into back to the government to have it again debated, read, the process that needs to be followed to get this into law. In speaking to your point about the assault in the school, there's a culture of toxic maleness, toxic male masculinity that's enforced by general society. Sexual assault, sexual abuse is a crime of power and control, and it was gut-wrenching to watch Kyle's interview, especially when he was asked the question, what would he say to the 16-year-old boy who was then assaulted by the same perpetrator, and Kyle just broke down and says, "I'm sorry, I couldn't do more to protect him." Kyle, you did the right thing. You reported it. I think the systems failed you, and the offender, the blame lies with the offender. Not with the survivor that tried to do the right thing.
Maria, you said it best. There is so much blame. There's so much shame, I mean to say, blame and shame that comes with being a survivor. And Kyle was even told by the person he referred to, I believe, as Doc Gary, that, he brought this upon himself, right? So there was no support for him. Julianne, I want to put up some statistics here, statistics you will be familiar with because it's something that your organization has quoted as well. This is from right here, the World Players Association 2021 report, and the World Players Association represents thousands, 85,000 athletes across the world. So they said 13%, there we go, 1-3 of athletes experience one form of sexual abuse at least once as a child in sport. The majority of victims are female. I believe we have a few more numbers here. The most reported forms of sexual abuse: receiving sexual content online, exposing private parts, being spoken to in a sexual way, sending naked photos. Julianne, is there awareness now? I mean, this is 2021. That's what's happening here. Like, do athletes understand, young athletes, this is a crime?
Yeah, I know the people that worked on that report, and we provided support and guidance on it as well. And they're incredible in terms of being very trauma informed. But they even say that percentage, that 13% that you noted, is low and underreported. So I just want to point that out too. Whenever we have sexual assault statistics in sport, we know it's so underreported that just think about the many others that were afraid to speak out because of what Kyle went through.
You're right. It relies on self-reporting. You have to want to honestly answer those questions.
Right. And who does, right? There's so much threat too involved. Oftentimes with the perpetrator, that makes it even more difficult. But when you were asking about children and what they do know, we really look at an institution having a full trauma-informed safeguarding ethos that really permeates every part of the organization, where safeguarding practices are a part of everything that they do. And a big part of that too is making sure that youth especially are aware of things like Child Athlete Bill of Rights. We have one that we call SAFE. So as an athlete, they have a right to say no, act and reach out for support, feel their emotion, and be educated about where and how to report. And it's not just these Bill of Rights. They have to be live, evolving documents that every person involved with that child athlete knows about. And we even encourage parents to think about, before I let my kid go to that gym, club, or camp and pay lots of dollars it takes to have them go to that gym, club, or camp, I need to demand that they have a Child Athlete Bill of Rights, that they go through it with the children over and over again, and that every single person is aware of it, as well as the safeguarding principles and policies.
Good advice. Arthur, I'm going to give our final question to you, and I'm going to add in two questions into one here if I can. When you and Maria find at the Gatehouse, someone finally comes forward and seeks support and divulges that they have been sexually abused or assaulted, why is that? Why is it, do you find after 10, 20 years, someone finally says, I'd like support and I want to report this to the police? Is there something that takes place? Is there a trigger? And also for young men at home, young women, really anyone who has not sought support yet, has not reported abuse to police. What's your message?
That we are here, that the Gatehouse is here. Just like the other guests that you have on, that we are here. There are people here who care about people that they never have met before in their lives. And we are here to hear your story, and you are going to be believed. One of the most powerful things of all is being in a room, sitting with another human being who really genuinely listens to every single thing that you say. That's what we want to be able to do. And I think the really fundamental question is, what is it going to take in not just institutions, but in our culture, our entire culture, that creates processes and understanding and education for this issue of abuse? That's what we want to be doing. And I don't understand why it is so difficult to have legislation in our country that says we're going to teach children about this issue, the way we teach children about crossing the street, the way we teach people all kinds of things about safety. So we want to be here for you, and we are here for you. And we're going to continue to be here for you.
Arthur, incredibly powerful. Thank you for those words. And just before we let you go, what do you and Maria find? Why is it after 10, 20 years, someone finally says, I want to get help? Is it because they hear from someone like Kyle Beach publicly?
For
Maria?
sure. Thank you. I've seen a lot of really great messages online. People are coming forward, even on Twitter, retweeting and sharing. Definitely, it does help people to see others who are very public about their abuse and public about, it's part of their healing journey. He was asked that question, why do this, why come forward? And it's part of the healing journey to do that for him. And it really inspires other men as well to come forward, because there's a lot of secrecy, shame, silence around male survivors still in our society. As Arthur mentioned, it's inspirational to see him come forward and help others with his voice. Thank you.
Maria, Arthur, Julianne, thank you for your comments tonight and all you do to help those in your community and athletes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.